Today is Christmas Day, which is a really sad day for me, but I think a lot all my life about one thing I had to do where I really had no choice. And I really didn't. I really, really didn't. Do I regret it? Yeah, I regretted it that day. I've regretted it all my life, but I'm sure it was the right decision. But back in the 90s, I had a child that was severely problematic. I tried really hard getting her mental care, $100 a visit to a shrink to try to keep her sorted out. She was really, really young, and it became very problematic. It became so problematic that she was like flipping out, doing crazy stuff, and it was making me look really bad legally. Uh, and I stood my ground. I stood my ground, believing I was a really good mommy, that I wasn't that one that just couldn't wait to get a babysitter to put her somewhere so I could go out and party like everybody else I knew. I treasured my time with my kids, always have. Um, they were my life. I was never supposed to have children. I was told very young I would never have children because my parts were damaged for life because of the copper 7 IUD. So, I never worried about having kids. And I figured, well, if I needed any, I'd buy some. And I had the money to do so. I really did. I made very good money in my lifetime. I did love children. I loved everybody else's kids to a point. And kids make the world go round. But, I never imagined I would have any children physically. And even when I had my first one, they made jokes like the three men coming from the east. Uh, yeah. But anyway, I had 5 inches of documentation, 5 inches thick. The only one I knew was sort of like being in the land of the Wizard of Oz was to go see the wizard. And that would be my father, who lived in California. And I had all the documents with me. And I decided to do a road trip running costumes across the states. And if I made it to California, I would try to see if my dad was available, which he was always traveling around the world at that time. He was doing very well. Millionaire a couple times over, very good business, iconic person, um, and pretty world renowned. Um, and one of the wisest people I know. When I left home very young, I thought he was a stupid jerk, but I did what I thought was the best for me. Um, and I really do wish it could have been different. I was lucky in that day and age to have survived all those years, being underage and having fake ID and working and some of the people that I ran across that I thought were real and they weren't, and all the things I learned and people that basically raised me and taught me the way of life and how to be streetwise and street smart and other things. But, as time rolled on, even though my father was more like a business person to me than family, because we were not real close till about 3/4 of my life was over. Um, and it's a shame. He's an iconic man. I always wanted to try to be better than him and my mother. They were both pretty iconic. And um, they were definitely, idols, and I never wanted to deface the family name. Oh gosh, I never wanted to do that. But as the years went by, still, my father was always 99% right. Amazing, amazing man. Um, so I thought I'd take this trip because it was my last chance effort. I had about 30 days. Hey, Roxanne, I had about 30 days to um, decide what I was going to do in the last and final court case. Thank you for the thumbs up. And hopefully I could catch up with my daddy, which he could never get a hold of but about once a year, which he'd probably be in Europe or who knows, and see what he thought. And I think the most embarrassing thing would be to hand him over the files and say, here, what do you think? So, in the meantime, this child, at one point, my baby sister decided to save her out of the system when they told her it was impossible, but she got it done. The child was shipped to California, and it was another beginning of a nightmare from hell. So now my family had no faith in this child because of her actions. And she swears today that, those things weren't true. I don't know. I wasn't there. All I know is one person's story and another person's story. And so she, my family had zero faith in this child. I had faith in her because she's mine. She's my blood. How could you not? No matter what. I mean, that's part of being a parent, as, being there. Being there and believing in your child no matter what. And she was so young. She was so young. So I made that big trek across the United States. Made a lot of money. And had a brand new Cadillac. I had only had for like 3 months, paid it off in 3 months. So it was mine. And I thought this would be a perfect trek, which I had a problem because I had a radiator problem coming through needles right before California because it was like 104 degrees out in that desert. And I was so mad because I had warranty under that car from Cadillac of Memphis and they wouldn't cover it in California. So that was another problem. And then also my alternator died right before I left to head back home to be in court in about 48 hours. So a simple trip. When I got to California, it was problematic. I got to my dad's corporate, and, they went through different people all the time. The secretary in the office thought I was a lunatic. And I said, look, if you could please contact him and tell him I am here. That I really need to see him. Is he in the United States? Is he in California? And, of course, they can't tell you anything. Those people are always sworn to secrecy, and they just think I'm nobody. And I'm like, really, I'm his daughter. And I just don't live here. And so anyway, finally, after about an hour and a half, they said, well, I contacted him, and he will meet with you. And I said, well, okay, good. He's in the States. So, anyway, it was actually one of the neatest trips I'd been on, especially see my father, who was not like a father at all, most all my life. And I was there for, several weeks, which I thought I was only going to be there a couple days. And plus I worked in the meantime, and then, my family was yeah, I did. It was kind of interesting. It was more like a business deal than a dad. Thank you. But anyway, everybody was fighting over me all the time I was there, calling me and saying, can we have lunch? Can we do dinner? Da da da. My dad, of, of course, hey, inspirational nomad, how are you? It's so good to see you. So, of course, it was interesting to be so wanted when I hadn't been home in a lot of years. I guess it had been 15 years previous to that. And to be back in California, which I never really missed California that much after I left. Um, and still really don't miss it today. I have a wonderful opportunity if I will go back, but I don't know that I will take that. Um, and my life would be made in the shade, but I just don't know. You have to decide in life if things are really worth it, if you would take it in desperation, or you would have to think about it more, which I have to think about it more. And I'm saying it's a probable no, but you never know. You never know what tomorrow has to bring. But anyway, and sometimes the easiest way out is not the easiest way out. So anyway, uh, my dad and I had some great times. We had lunches and dinners, and he said, "Well, where are you staying?" And I said, "Well, um, I haven't, looked at anything yet. I'll have to check on hotels. And there's no truck stops around, so I can't like crash out at a truck stop. The only one is like downtown LA. And you can't sleep on the beach anymore. They outlawed that back when I was a kid. Um, so he said, well, look, at that time he had 41 boats with the academy, and he offered me one of the boats to stay on, and he felt terrible about that. But of course, he would never let me stay in his house because I would want to steal everything that was there, because he had the pictures of my parents and their wedding, which he hated my mother, but not till the day, he left. But he had some very wonderful things to say about her. But, but it took years later. But anyway, he, uh, was the only one that I really believed in, that I could trust, because during the duration of all that mess with my daughter and being called everything but, I guess the term is being called everything but black, um, I had, friends that said, man, if, somebody did that to my kid, I would kill them. And I said, look, you don't understand. I take things legally because, um, you know, it's not worth, going to the gas chamber for killing somebody, and then she would have no parents. Because her daddy was kind of a hidden secret thing for many, many years, because it was a total death threat for her and I. We were definitely in imminent danger if I would have stayed in California. Um, and the few times that I went back was very scary. Um, but I stayed on the boat, which was the greatest thing in the world. It reminded me of growing up with my dad, staying on the boat, which he thought was absolutely terrible when we lived on the boat, till he got us an elegant apartment in Marina Del Rey. And really, that our best life was on the boat. And my baby sister, I'm sure, would agree. My dad thought he should do so much better as a parent, because other people probably told him that. And actually, our best life was on the boat. So it was just the most wonderful thing to sleep on the boat and get up in the morning and hear the halyards hit the mast and smell the ocean and look in the water and see the fish and the boat rock in the dock when boats would go by, and go take a shower up at the head, because I had keys. I always had keys to everything in Marina Del Rey. And uh, it was just, I mean, wonderful. So it gave me time to peace out and think and spend some time with my dad that I never did get to spend with him, even when I was younger. It was kind of like I was a famous person, you know. Everybody was fighting over me. I was afraid of hurting people's feelings, you know, because I had so many invites for lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever. And I was there for a reason. I was there for a reason. Was my dad a spy or something? No, no. Um, and my dad was a very famous, renowned individual all around the world. Um, and so one day after about a week, I said, "Well, the real reason I am here is because of this." And I had brought this bag up, and I had this 5 inches of documentation, 5 inches thick. I sat it on his desk in his office. He said, "What's all that?" I said, "That is my daughter." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "The real reason I am here, that I trekked across the United States in hopes that I would make it to California financially, which I had a very good run, absolutely fabulous run. Um, and I was doing well in California too, in old clubs that I hadn't been in years. Um, and they didn't even know what costume makers were. There's some of these places had shops built into the clubs and everything else, and they still let me run because they knew me from years and years ago. And so my dad took the documentation after about another week. He didn't say anything. But we still met, you know, and did some things together and every day and really had a blast. I wished I would have had that when I was a kid. The reason didn't have that when I was a kid, well, my dad and I did not ever really get along. I think probably because we were too much in the same. It was like putting two bulls in the ring. I was pretty much used to raising myself, my baby sister, my mom, my grandpa, and handling everything. And then I went to live with my dad, and you know, it was like starting over being a baby again, and it was like, oh man, this is like so dull. My dad worked day and night. He did. He worked for the local colleges, several of them, plus his own business with the academy. And then, you know, he was a guest lecturer, and then he also helped with movies and stuff, and just all kinds of things. And you know, my father worked. Yes, we always lived quite well, actually. I remember the days when, you know, microwaves first came out, and we used to take lobster out of the freezer and stick it in the microwave because we had a freezer full of lobsters because my dad would get them from fishermen and stuff, dirt cheap and stuff. And I mean, yeah, we were living. Um, he didn't like to spend a lot of money on clothes and stuff, so we had to dress like the sailing academy. It was white pants and blue shirt. We even wore that stuff to school, so we never had style like our friends. And I went to school a lot of famous people, um, and they had really neat clothes, and their families were really well to do. And my dad was just kind of making it at that time. He wasn't well to do yet. He was much more well to do after I left home. But uh, after about a week, my father um, said, "Well, I'm going to give you these documents back." So, yes, sir. And I was in great hopes that he had read them, even though they're 5 inches thick. And it said some very bad things in there about me, and it was really messy. Um, and this is after my daughter was shipped back from California in a big time hurry because nobody wanted her. Because she was the bad news bears from what they said. And it was like, oh God, now I'm going to look really bad because my kid is like the child from hell. And it's going to make me look bad. And, you know, this is a mess. So anyway, at that time, my daughter was being held by the state. I had a year to attempt to get her back, which I told them day and night, I will have a Cadillac for every day she is gone. You are wrong. You have done nothing. You have done nothing to the man that did stuff to her. Why? We went to you for help. And you know what backfired in our face? Both of us. I still believe that today. You know, like that song, Vincent, they're not listening. They're still not listening now. Even to this day. So my father looked at me and he said, look, and at that time I had 3 shops in Memphis. I had 6 cars in the driveway paid for, always one brand new car. I had a big house that was in both of our names. My daughter literally signed the contract underage at my lawyer's office. And I did that for a reason, because I was told my time was not going to be good. I would stop walking in 5 years. And I wanted to make sure she was taken care of, because I lived for that wonderful child. The blessing of my life, my love, my sweetheart. He was so badly damaged. And I guess I'll never know exactly what happened. There's one person that does know, but they just died about 3 years ago. And today I wish I would have asked them what she said years ago when I had them talk to her, because I didn't know whether to believe it or not. And they told me she didn't see that in the movie and she didn't make that up. I'll never forget George James's eyes when he looked at me and told me that after talking to her by himself. But I never knew the story. I never did. Still don't today. Do I want to know? I don't know. I guess it would be nice if I could know the real story, but then again, at this point, it's like she still can't be trusted to this day, unfortunately so. I would say probably one of my greatest fears of my whole lifetime is that child to this day. She's just scary. We could be friends for about 5 minutes and that's about it. She has a total hatred for me. And then sometimes she's just so in love with me. And to me, it doesn't make sense, but maybe it's the mentality. Whatever happened really damaged that child. And I left the man, but didn't know till a year later. But anyway, my father went over the documents. We're sitting in his office, and he looks at me in the eyes, and he said, well, here is the best option that you have. And I said, well, okay. And he said, cut her loose. I said, do what? He said, go to court. This is the last and final hearing. He said, all this stuff in this documentation, yeah, it makes you look bad. It really does. He said, but they'll hit you with child support. But they're going to take your house. They're going to take everything you own. You better get broke really quick. I said, what are you talking about? He's like, get rid of all the cars, get rid of the houses, do whatever. I said, I can't get rid of the houses because she signed the contract. They almost paid for. You know, I only had like a 5 or 7 year note on that property. And I think I was into it for like a year or 2 at that point, probably 2 years. And I had paid in advance on my property too. So, I mean, I was at the top of the heap. I had a true empire. I had it made. The only thing that was missing was that wonderful little girl that I lived for, that something happened to. that I couldn't understand, that I couldn't fix, that I didn't know if it would ever be fixed. And my father says, cut her loose. I said, how can you say that? What am I supposed to do? He said, you go in court, you let them take her. I said, I can't stand up in court and let them take my blood child. He said, you don't have a choice. I said, why? He said, because they will put you in jail. This child will put you in jail with her lies, with her stories. Whatever's wrong with her, they will put you in jail if you keep her. You can't try anymore. You can't fix it. She needs professional help. I said, no way. There is no way I can walk down that aisle, stand there and let them swear me in, and stand there and let them take her away. How can I do that? My own blood? How? That's not even human. That's just criminal. My daddy says, I said, you only say that because you hated me all my life. He said, no, I'm just saying that because of what I've read in the documentation. It's not looking good for you. And I believe you have done nothing. I know your daughter. We've all tried to help her. Your baby sister reached out and stepped out to try to help her, to take her in, to adopt her, whatever it took. But she's messed up, and you can't fix it. And I said, well, I'm wondering if she'll ever grow out of that, or what does it take to straighten her out, or, does it take for this guy to die to where she'll have peace one day? What does it really take? Can it be erased? Can it be fixed? I mean, she's so young. We were in this together. We went to the authorities to get this bastard prosecuted. And it didn't work. They were not listening. And instead, the tables turned on me. Why? Well, that's one thing I learned from all the showgirls. There's so many of them that are abused across the United States, and so many of them have interesting stories to tell when you get to know them. So I learned a lot in that year. I learned a lot of maybe why she did the things she did. Why she called me the kettle black. The reason was it was in pure fear. It was the only thing she knew. That if she separated us, that he would never come back to kill her or I, because he would be looking for us together. Yes, he pulled a shotgun in her face. I know that. He did it to me. That's why I left him. But didn't find out till a year later. So is it excusable? I don't know. I guess if you think of it in a little child's mind that's under 10 years old, then maybe you would think it was the right thing to do too. I respect her for that. And I probably always will if that's the reason. That's okay. She did what she had to do in pure fear to save her own life and her mother's. I really believe that, and the showgirls taught me that over and over and over again in their stories. Had a guy one night come in, and I was featuring in Memphis, and sat with this gentleman, very nice, tipping me great, didn't even buy a dance. And he told me a story about his sister, and said that she was in a mental institution, and she was like in her 40s. And he said it was really sad because years later they found out that his father had sexually abused her when she was young and flipped her. They called her crazy, put her in the loony bin. She lived there all her life, and she'll never get out. The guy died never being prosecuted. and she still lived in a loony bin. He said, do you want that to happen to your child? I said, dear God. Then I started thinking, gee, I wonder if she'll just be gay and never have kids or a husband because she'll hate men because of whatever happened. Whatever happened so many years ago when she was like 6 years old. And I'll never know the story, I guess. Do I feel bad? Yeah. Do I have hate? Yep, I do. If anything was done to my little girl that made her like she is today, I will always hate you. That man is dead. He passed away apparently 3 years ago. And oh, how I wish I could spit on his grave. Because she claims that's what happened. That's the apparent damage. I had to go into court. My daddy and my alternator was going bad on that brand new Cadillac. I had to get back. Parts were high on Cadillac, especially a new one. Like $600 for an alternator. I didn't have $600 for an alternator. I had the gas money and stuff to get back. No problem, but I just really didn't need to be spending that. My daddy, being in the boat business, knew all the right folks. My daddy was not any real mechanically inclined kind of dude, and he and I were out there in the parking lot at his sailing school trying to pull the alternator on a brand new Cadillac. Why? I didn't have a clue. I'm like, we can't be our own mechanics. I mean, this needs to go to the shop, but no. So we did it together. One of the few things I ever did with my dad together. We got that alternator, and we jumped in a Mercedes, and we drove to a shop in Santa Monica. My dad walks in, everybody knows him. Like everywhere. They all know him. He said, look, I need this alternator. And I turned to him and I go, Daddy, this is a boat place. They service boat alternators. He said, don't worry about it. He said, I need this alternator fixed. What can you do? The guy says, well, we can rewind it. He said, go ahead and do it. We'll be back. How long will it take you? He said, 2 days. I'm like, oh God, I'm getting close to this court date. So we went back 2 days later. Yes, I want to pee my pants because I'm going to have to trek across the United States without working, basically. I drive straight through, it seems, to make it in time for court because I have to appear. So, if I don't, then they'll just charge me with child support and all that other cool stuff and take my house and what's left, and I have to get rid of everything and become poor and just sort of insane. So, we get the alternator back. We put it back on the car. Car runs absolutely fantastic. So that problem's solved. Again, my father and I talk. And I say, God, I can't believe I stayed this long. I only planned to be out here just a couple days, but, it's really been fun. And my dad agreed. I said, I'm sorry I had to come here on a bad note. He said, no. He said, you did what you thought was right. And you came to me for advice. And I told you what you need to do. Now you make your choice. Like always, you'll always do what you want to do. But I'm just telling you what you need to do. Or you're going to end up in jail over this kid. So, I had to meet with everybody, in short order because I need to head back home in a hurry. I had a huge drive to make. Huge. Like 2,000 miles. In a very short time. That means I had to drive day and night with no sleep. Because I needed to appear for that last and final hearing. They only give you about a year when they so-called take your kids away. They give you a year to get your crap together so you can prove to the court that everything's going to be okay. The bad part was I was established. I made money. I had money. I made the largest deposits in the bank beyond the farmers, who were the richest people in town. I had 6 cars in the driveway, paid for. I had a 5-story, 200-year-old Victorian with a 1-bedroom, 1-story in the back, a 15-car driveway, big granddaddy porch. Paid for all by myself, with no man's help. Banks wouldn't cover me because I was a single parent. And I was a respectful individual. I wasn't out in the bar rooms partying and screwballing around and trying to find the next excuse for a babysitter. I loved my kids. All of them. At one point in time. So, I made it back with a lot of tears on the way. A lot of tears on the way. Because I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do it. It was against my theories, against my being a human being, against my blood. I wasn't going to let anybody take my baby girl away, the love of my life. I was so badly damaged. Yes, sir, you're absolutely right. So, I knew that my father was probably right as usual. And I didn't have a choice. And I didn't want to go to jail. I'd never been to jail in my life. And I sure didn't want to go to jail for things I never did. I was not a bad mommy. Not at all. And where did my little girl go? She turned into the child from hell. She was scary. Really scary. They tried to get me to sign her off and tricked me several times. They sent 21 cops in my yard and they parked all over my neighbors' yards. Demanded I go to the welfare department. It was after hours. They were already closed. There was 2 people in the building. They threw a stack of papers in front of me and wanted me to sign them. I said, I'm not signing nothing unless a lawyer sees it first. You have to sign. I said, am I going to get arrested? Because I'm getting ready to leave now. Now, if you want to give me copies of these documents, I'll take them to the lawyer, but I'm walking out of this building, whether you like it or not. This business isn't even open. Looks a little shady to me. You're trying to force me to do something. I had a woman call me, this old wretched piece of crap, used to be in the casino all the time. I did a fake lawsuit to Walmart, who'd call me at my home and say, why don't you let me adopt your daughter? Why don't you just sign the papers? I said, who the hell are you? Why on earth are you contacting me? The things I went through, all the people that wanted me to go kill this guy because it would make it better. That's Southern theory, And I'm like, no, I'm not going and killing people so that I can, be next in line for the gas chamber. That doesn't solve the problem. It needs to be taken care of legally. The problem is the damage that was done to my kid. The problem is that all these years later, the damage still exists. That I thought she would grow out of. That I thought when this guy died, it would give her peace. But I don't think so. There are some good points to that story, though. So I went to court that day. I knew the judge personally, Rusty Porter. The welfare lady was there and everything else. Put her on the stand, made her look stupid as crap. he told me, he said, well, we want to give her back. Now, bear in mind, I had one of the biggest houses in the town. I had 3 good going businesses in Memphis, Tennessee. I was making bank. 6 cars in the driveway paid for. Worked when I felt like it, made bank. Could buy anything I wanted. Always had money. And he wants to give her back. So it's kind of obvious. Everybody knew me. Everybody knew my business. They knew how much I made. And I looked at Rusty and I said, I can't do it. And my dad told me to let them take her away. Don't fight to the end or they're going to hit you with child support. They'll take your house, take everything you got. And you better get rid of everything in a hurry, right? So this was one of the hardest things I ever did in my entire life. Was this hearing. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I had to lie. I had to lie my butt off. Just short of pleading insanity. That wouldn't have worked because they made me go do a $3,000 MMPI, which the state paid for. And I passed that sucker, except the doctor was kind of pissed because we got an argument about how an apple is not round. Because an apple is not round. If it was round, it wouldn't sit. That's not round. And because I didn't know why my parents had split up when they divorced. And I kind of felt like that was none of my business. Nobody ever cared to discuss it with me. They had total hatred for each other for years. And I kind of felt like it was none of my business even after I grew up. But that was the only 2 things held against me. Other than that, I passed with flying colors. And so he says, well, we really want to give her back. Obviously, because she burned her butt all the way through the system. She had been through several homes and was problematic. I knew that once it was final, they would change her name and move her somewhere else. And it would probably be half past never that I would ever see her again. I knew that I would be in jail if I ever was around her again before she was 18. Because you can't go near them. You can't go look for them. You can't contact them. You can't do anything. So it was all flashing before my very eyes in that court hearing, which lasted about an hour. And I'm thinking about my daddy like, dear God, I hope I do the right thing. Because I don't want to do this. I do not want to do this. I can't kiss my own blood off. I'm not a real mom if I just erase the problem like that. That's not solving the problem. The only problem is I had that slight doubt that maybe I could never fix her. And it would just get worse. And then he'd probably be right up in jail for a bunch of bullcrap lies that a bad little kid created because of pure fear. And he said, well, why can't you take her back? I said, well, I'm losing my house. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he says, are you working? And I said, well, barely. I can't really afford to take care of her. Which took a lot of cash in back in those days. I had a lot of money. I just stopped putting it in banks. I had to move a lot of stuff around very quickly. He says, so where are you working? I said, well, I go down to Jackson, Tennessee. I work at the Dollhouse. I manage a strip club. Where are you staying? I said, I sleep on the stage. Which I was. The weekends I would go down there and work. That wasn't a lie. Me and a lot of the other employees did, because we did so many hours and we were just going to open again in a few hours. There's no sense in going anywhere. Just might as well crash out in the club where we're safe. And it was cold. God, it was so cold then in Tennessee. But there was a lot of money. The colder it got, the more money there was. He said, well, we really, really want to give her back. And obviously, because she's just drove the system crazy, they just wanted to hand her back. It was too much trouble for them. They did not want her. And I had to stand there going, nope, can't do it. You know, I basically have no home. I'm barely making any money. I couldn't support her. You know, I just can't do it, Your Honor. And I've done nothing wrong. I tried to move this case out of the state to Huntsville, Alabama. I went and changed my driver's license. I changed the tags on my car. I did everything. I tried to get it moved out of the state. Got a lawyer down there and everything that barred my lawyer. And the state refused to move that case out of state. I fought and I fought until that last case. I did what my daddy said. Yes, I regret it. I regret it that day. I regret those words. God, I regret it. But I did what I had to do. Because I really believe I probably would have been in jail a million times over that kid. And she still scares me today. Every once in a while I hear from her. She's just so messed up. I really think she kind of floats in and out. But I did get rid of everything. And then the tornado hit the house and it was just nothing left but to rebuild it. I had the money to rebuild it. I talked to her one time. She called me. Which every time she contacted me after the state got her, I was scared to death. There'd be like 20 cops showing up again to arrest me because I talked to her. And you know, the help calls are screaming in the background. They're beating me and the different homes she was in. And then she would appear at the property. And it was just really scary every time. And I felt so bad. But I was so scared that cops would be there any minute to haul me away because I had contact with her and I didn't initiate that. She did it. And what are you going to do? Oh, she did it. They won't believe that either. I had a cop tell me, Captain Miller, one of the times that my daughter went ape crazy before all this, right before the state got her, when we went to them for help and it backfired. Really? Yeah, this one I don't think she'll ever get better. Extremely difficult. There's some hope. I don't know if there is. She's quite grown up today. Boy, she sure has a lot of hate for me, though. It's just horrible. It's like being beat constantly. I don't even like to talk to her because I don't know what she's going to be like. And that lasts about 5 minutes, and then she's all, you know, freaked out. It's not like I wished it upon her. It's not like I've tolerated something like that to happen. It's not like I would want that to happen to any of my children or anybody else's kids or any other person in the world. I'm not really sure it totally would happen. I wish I knew, but then I don't. But I did what I had to do. And I probably would have done it again the very same way. And I think my daddy was right. I didn't have a choice. And it doesn't mean that my Cadillacs, my houses, all the money I had in my shops were worth more than my child. I will never say that. Everything had to go. I knew they were going to take the houses for her in payment. I just knew it. I knew they were going to take my bank accounts. I knew they'd end up taking my shops. I knew they'd end up breaking me. I was waiting on that bill. 6 months later, after that hearing, because the state decided to take her, and they were then going to close the case. Seal it for life forever. That's what I was told. 6 months later, I get a letter from the state. I call my daddy. I said, Daddy, they said I owe child support. He said they can't. The state owns her. And I said, well, I got this piece of paper. And he said, well, you call them and you tell them. Sorry, but that child was taken by the state. They own her. I owe $0.00. So I called the worker, and it went round and round and round. I said, sorry, not today, pal. I'd since closed my shops, had given away a bunch of cars. Only had 2 now. House got hit by a tornado pretty bad. But I still worked. And I was making bank. I just had to hide it. So I beat the child support thing. That was the last. I was like, sue me, take me to court, whatever. But that case was closed and sealed. I owe nothing. The state took my child. That's the trick, is if you don't fight all the way to the end, you probably won't get billed. Did they fix her? No. I had petitioned to get her into Pinnacle Point in Little Rock. She was in there at one point in time under state care. They yanked her back out in about 3 weeks. I had talked to her while she was up there. Hey, how you doing? And she said she felt so safe that Thurman couldn't get to her because of the big steel doors. And I was kind of at peace. I said, God, this is great. She's happy to be there. She's happy to have people to talk to. Maybe they'll fix her. Then the state pulled her out. And I was mad as hell. I said, you're going backwards. We're treading backwards here. We are not getting her fixed. They didn't give a shit. All that system is for selling babies. That's all it's for. Who they can offer a bunch of welfare checks and food stamps to take somebody's kid, and it's not a supervised situation. They treat him like shit. My daughter went, as far as I know, in and out of 17 foster homes until she got out of the system. I had a showgirl tell me one time, I was like, God, I feel terrible. You know, it's horrible. I mean, it's like, you know, nobody's watching. You know, these poor jamokes at the welfare department aren't shit. They don't care about anybody else's kid. Anything could happen. This is a horrible thing. You know, and you hear all these terrible stories about foster homes and stuff. And she never really got adopted. I guess because nobody wanted her because she was so bad. She was pretty bad. My baby sister tells some pretty incredible stories of when she had my daughter. I guess it was a month or 2 until she shipped her back and gave up, threw up her hands. My whole family gave up on her. I still had that little bit of faith that things might get better some way, somehow. But no one would listen. One of my greatest joys was I had made a promise. It's her responsibility to get therapy now, regardless of how she continues to throw hate your way. Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I'm not close enough to her to discuss a lot of that because she gets really ballistic. Like, I did it to her, and I didn't do anything. And then she comes up with stories of things that I never did to her. And that's really scary. I don't mind admitting something I did, whether it's good or bad, but don't like talk crap. I don't appreciate it. Don't ever deface me for things I've never done. That's not cool. But then again, if you think of it from their point of view, they were young, it happened, and they're going to hate whoever's in their way, I guess. I don't know. It's something I couldn't stop. It's something I didn't know about. It's something I didn't know about till year after I left that man. I decided it wasn't a good situation for us. Could she have made up the abuse? Now, and that's another thing. I don't know, even to this day. There's one guy that's just dead, like 3 years ago, that I could have asked all these years later and said, what did she say that day when she talked to you in that room? But I trusted his word. He'd come out, he looked me in the eyes. George James said, Red, her story is not something made up. Her story is not something out of a movie. That guy did some bad things to her. That's all we know. And he's dead. So, George James is dead. He just passed away like 3 years ago. I never thought to even ask him exactly what she said. She's never told me what happened. She's a grown person. So yeah, one of the hardest stories I never really told. I lost a lot of friends. Wasn't just the money, the shops, the houses, the cars. There's no value on a child, Material things can always be bought back if you try. Do I regret it? Yep. Always. I always regret going in that courtroom and telling them no. No, no, and no. And I knew I was lying through my teeth. I miss my baby girl. My wonderful, sweet baby girl. She was so wonderful, so precious, the greatest gift on earth that I was never really supposed to have. I was never supposed to have. And I guess one man destroyed her. And did a whole bunch of other kids after that. She was 6. How? 6 years old. How? What did he do? How many times did he do it? Because she's really damaged to this day. I will say that I have watched through the years. Well, I better say this. I had always promised her a baby brother, a baby sister. She always wanted that. And I did that. I fulfilled my promise. I don't go back on my word. I had a little girl years later. And yes, my daughter showed up one day at my house, which I swore 21 cops would be following her to arrest me because she was in state care. And of course, nobody would adopt her. She flopped in and out of so many places for whatever reason. I can imagine because her reputation was not so hot. She's a fighter. She had to fire her mother and to fire her father. Even when I called her daddy during all those hearings and everything for that year, I said, do you want her? Come get her, please. Rescue her, save her. He's like, nope, she's too much trouble. You know what her brother said? I want to kick her butt and straighten her out. That's what her brother said. The guy that's on her birth certificate, he always had faith in her. Ronald Fournier. He would always take her no matter what. because she was part of me, because he so loved me. But that really didn't work out. And Ronald, he passed away like 4 years ago. I just found that out recently. Found out he was living in Florida, down in Hollywood, Florida, in Holiday, and actually did a trip down there just recently. Because I need to go collect a stolen Lincoln that he stole from me years ago. And I was going to give that car to my other child, collect that debt and get that sorted out years later, but that didn't happen. So, anyway, one of the neatest things was when she got to hold her baby sister, newborn. Yeah. I was like, it just made everything better. And I was so happy that I fulfilled her dream and I kept my promise, although I really didn't want any more children. And shortly after that, she rolled her to the state. And we had to run. And I resent that because she was trying to sacrifice her baby sister to the state to go through the crap that she had gone through. And how could you take an innocent little baby and try to do that? Well, because this child's messed up. Maybe she wants everybody to live in her misery. So I've not appreciated that. When I was going through my divorce back in 2004, this child offered me $5,000 if I would ship my daughter to her at this other state for a visit. Kind of made me nervous. I thought, man, she's going to try to hit me for selling a kid, because that would be what she'd do. She'd just keep her and wouldn't return her. I just had that feeling. She's somebody I cannot trust. Don't know what to expect. She's my kid, but she's scary to this day. I will say, for everything she had gone through, she's done quite well. Of course, I have watched through the years. Of course, I have paid attention, even though I hadn't had contact but very rarely with this child. And she's full grown. She was a veterinarian. She loves animals. Big love for animals. And she married a guy that I kind of think was in foster home with her. Is one of the showgirls that told me the best way she can get out of the system is to marry out of the system at a young age. And I thought that was kind of interesting. That would be her only way out. How could I tell her? Or will she find out? And I think that's just what she did. I didn't find out she was married till after, and it was all over the newspaper, and it stated that a guy I used to be with, that I was engaged to, and I was with the guy for many years, him and his girlfriend were claiming they were her parents, and did this big wedding announcement on the front page of the newspaper, big picture, and I was mad as hell. I threatened to sue the newspaper. I bought every newspaper in town, threw them in the trunk of my Cadillac. I was mad as fire. Called her father, and I said, you cannot believe that she's getting married. And he goes, oh, to who? He said, good man. I said, I don't know. I said, he's Mexican. He said, Mexican? He said, this is junk. I said, what? I said, Latin just like you. He said, but I be the Cuban. He said, Mexican is junk. So he was mad as hell about that. And I said, well, hell, I mean, if she married a black dude with a feather out of his hat and a purple Cadillac, not my problem. It's her choice who she sleeps with, right? Her brother was pissed too. Then they were both pissed because nobody was invited to go to the wedding. None of us. Her dad wanted to start the Cuban Revolution. Man, he was so mad. Her dad didn't even get to walk her down the aisle. Now that's pitiful. That's pitiful. But what do you do? I told her who her father was. I told her who her father was before she left that house. Because I wanted to be honest. I tried to change her birth certificate a year after with my uncle, who was a big time lawyer in Oklahoma. And he said, "You don't want to do that, Red." Yeah. And I said, but it's the honest thing to do. I need to either take his name off or put unknown dad or whatever. Maybe make me sound bad, but, but she's still in, you know, clear and present danger. We both are. Because this guy's, you know, wife was still alive, his former wife. And she's, I mean, stone cold cuckoo. She's still alive today, and she's really out there. Her father passed away, I guess, about 5 years ago. And that was sad, too, because he only got to hold her when she was newborn, basically. She was 5 months old. 5 months old was the last and only time he held her and saw her. That hurt. That was one of the second hardest things I ever did in my life, was to take that baby out of his arms the day I left on the airplane to get away, because I thought it was a bad situation. It was right. She's still at risk today. If that woman sees her, she'll probably shoot her on sight. I don't doubt it. Me too. But such is life. Her dad lived with me for like 7 years. But it wasn't the best of situations. I don't regret leaving. He always offered for me to come back to California, and he would pay that child's way, everything. And I said no. He did. He was scared that I would sue him years later for child support. And I said, no, as a matter of fact, I won't even put you on the birth certificate. I had saw this interesting movie about a little boy, and you've probably seen it. And his parents were going through a divorce, and the kid was struck right down through the middle. And it was so horrible sad. The kid was taking more effect of it than the parents. I said, I will never let that happen in my life if I ever have kids. Which, at that point in time, I would have adopted, because I was never supposed to have children. I wasn't looking to have any kids. I wasn't worried about it. It didn't hurt me in any way. Didn't really care about it. Didn't really think about it. I was busy working, making money. I didn't have any big dreams of having kids and a white picket fence and a station wagon. I really didn't. I worked. I knew what the dollar bill brought me. And I had to go out there to get it. With no man's help. Well, my other friends like to get a rich man, marry him, and everything was going to be wonderful and good. No. I like to work for my money, make my own. So, how has she done? She married that Mexican guy. He was an upstanding kind of guy, actually. Military. She was with him for a while. Had a little girl, and I had talked to her at that point, right before she had that child. She never told me she was pregnant, but she was making fun of pregnant people all day long. And I guess she was making fun of herself. And they end up splitting up. I'm not sure of exactly the reason, but maybe because she lied about her real parents. And she has got into the real estate industry and then opened her own business and married again to a lawyer. I guess she's been married 1 or 2 years now. Maybe it's about 2 years. I'm very happy for her that she's been quite successful in life. I am proud of her. I really am. I'm glad she made it this far. Um, we do not get along at all. I rarely ever talk to her. Most of the time I block her. Um, and she has adopted an abused child that is like 11 or something and has taken her in to raise while her other child is a little older than her. Well, that's because he thought the guys were to blame, so she made it up into her parents. Yeah, I'm not sure. Um, I really resent because that one guy I was with for so many years and was engaged to the last 6 months, like, traded me for a rich girl who was a total lunatic. Um, and, you know, and I told him, I said, really, you want to take that big spin on the wheel? You think it'll be worth it? Yeah. Man, if you're going to replace me, do it with something better, man. Something that's really smoking hot, really looking good. And like I said, well, I just didn't look as good as her. Don't replace me with a total 100% pig. Because that's what he did. It was all about the money, and he admitted it. But he still wanted to come back for more. And it's like, no, you picked who you wanted to be with. That's who you be with. I'm with one person at a time or nobody. So I'll take nobody. You know? So, yeah. But to this day, I have requested that she put a full one-page thing in the newspaper of where that came out years ago to make the statement that those people were not her parents and they did not adopt her and who her real parents are. And a total apology. And that still has not been done yet. What's she like? Every once in a while I get an email. Somehow she gets in using somebody else's email or something and sends me this message, like total desperation of like, I really need a mom and da 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 da. It's like, you didn't need me all these years. How come you'd need me now, And then after, a year of listening to that crap, I heard using other people's emails and everything else to try to contact me and call other people. And people are like, your daughter's trying to contact you. I'm like, nope, don't have daughter. And then finally I'll talk to her for about, it's 5 or 12 minutes. And then the next call or anything on the computer is like total insanity, total hate. I want you dead kind of stuff. I remember one time we were on Yahoo and she started sending these pictures of a cartoon character stabbing somebody with blood gushing out because she was mad at what I said. And I said, man, this is crazy. I mean, this kid's just screwed up. So I guess she's damaged for life. I guess. Or she flips in and out. I don't know. All I know is it's okay. I've been called the kettle black before, and it doesn't faze me, I guess. I don't like it because I'm a good, upstanding person. But, such is life. I just wish the best for her. I really do. And for whatever may have happened that I don't know, and maybe I will never know, she's done very well. She's actually retired out of the real estate business at this time because she's made her money and she's tired of doing it. Unfortunate because there was a lot of money in the last year with real estate. But I'm proud of her. She's married another gentleman and she's raising somebody else's kid that's apparently been damaged, maybe much like she did. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there is no help for her. Maybe that damage is permanent. Maybe she'll always be like that. I kind of thought she would maybe grow out of it when she was, grown up at one point. But no. But then again, people say, well, she hates you because it happened. And it was because of you, because it was the guy you were going to marry. Yeah, I was engaged to marry this guy. And he was very well to do. My best friend, Kathy Stotts, told me that I should, for once in my life, take advantage of somebody who wants to take care of me and really loves me. And that was a bull crap deal. Don't ever do that. I didn't even love this guy. I mean, he just, ugh. Don't ever do that. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It wasn't worth it for all the people I knew in my life that when girls grew up, their big thing was find a rich guy and marry him. It's not worth that. I watched all that fail, and it failed for the one time I tried it because my best friend tried to convince me that it was the best thing to do for my daughter. And guess what? It wasn't. And guess what? Years later, I think it happened again to one of my other kids. Then that's when you feel like a piece of crap. My boundaries with her or anyone, sometimes we have to love from a distance. It makes it tough because, she's scary. Really, one of the people that scare me the most is her. I suffered so much damage on paper years ago. I suffered so much damage with people that I knew. I mean, I was totally defaced in the town I lived in. Even years later, do you know, back in, I guess it was 2004, about the time I was getting my divorce, that welfare worker emailed me and said, "We know where you are." I was like, what? Why on earth is that welfare worker emailing me years later telling me creepy crap like that? That case was 100% closed. No, nobody was looking for me for any reason. And yes, I had another child that had no trouble with the authorities whatsoever. And my daughter was always well taken care of by me. So I called the department and I called the state and I turned that worker in because guess what? That email came from that building on their business email from the welfare office. And this is years later. And I'm talking like 20 something years later. Really? You so dare? You so dare? I hope she lost her job. Because that's stalking to me. That's terroristic. That's threatening. Why are you bothering me? We already went through a court case a million years ago back in the 90s. Why on earth are you jacking with me when I don't even live in that state anymore? When all that stuff was closed and buried years ago. I even checked on it years later because I didn't believe it. They told me, no, that case is sealed. There was no reason to ever open that again. And I'm like, really? Like, is this stuff like on my record for live or something? And all these horrible things my daughter said and stuff, and I didn't do anything. She did it because it was her only way out. She was just a little bitty girl. She thought it was a good thing to do. So that they'd never bring her back. So that he would never find her if we were split up. It would be much harder for him to find her. Or me, because she told. That's all I know. So is it one of the hardest stories I've never really told? Yeah. Always my whole life. I would regret that day. Would I have done it again the same way? Yep. Hate to tell you, yeah. My daddy was right back then. He was right today. That's why I did it. I did it because my daddy was the wise man. I did it because even today, I really believe what he said was true. I had to do the most inhuman, horrible thing in my entire life to stand up in front of a courtroom and people I've known for years and say, no. That is violation of the worker, completely unethical. Is it possible she can be friends with your daughter? Oh, sure. Undoubtedly. But yeah, that was pretty creepy. I mean, why would this woman stalk me all these years later? Like, who are you? Have you lost your mind? Do you realize that you work for the government? And why are you terrorizing people from years later? Do you think I would ever expect that in my lifetime? To have a social worker who was an evil piece of caca who wouldn't pay attention to my daughter getting fixed. He was putting more damage into my daughter. Because she didn't care because it wasn't hers. What if it was her kid? What if it was her? Did my daughter ever really tell the truth? Did she ever really tell that story that she told George James? Did she? You know, it's funny because about 5 years later, after the state had taken her, the Memphis sheriffs came to my work and asked for my help and my daughter's help to prosecute Larry Robert Thurman. Yeah, 5 years later. I said, you know what? My daughter's long gone in the system. She's been in several homes. And legally, I can't get in touch with her. They'll put me in jail. I'm not supposed to know anything about her or where she's at or anything. You know, when they took her, it's like watching your child get run over by a tractor trailer and you can't stop it. Right in front of your very eyes. You can't stop it. It's like they're dead. It ripped my guts out all my life. And just when they wanted to give her back, because I gave up, because I knew she was problematic, and I had to say no. It's like I threw my daughter into the vicious system, and I don't think she did well. Laurel, get off my channel. Take your spamming trash somewhere else. Thank you so much. I guess the good thing is that guy is dead. I don't know exactly why. I could probably imagine why. I've heard a weird story, but he was killed on a shooting range. I don't know if that's true or not. He was accidentally shot. I know Memphis. I don't know whatever happened in Memphis because my hands were tied. I willfully gave him the name of the worker that was in charge of my child after the state got her. I said my hands were tied. By law, I couldn't contact her in any way. And why didn't they do anything back then when we went to them? Because like that song, Vincent, Starry, Starry Night, they would not listen. They're not listening still. Perhaps they never will. So after it was entirely too late, they wanted to do something. The whole reason in being. I had a lawyer friend of mine used to come to Platinum. And I talked to him about this. And I said, what do I do? I think my daughter's been sexually abused by this guy that I was engaged to that I left. He said, well, you got two choices, Red. He said, one, you could shut up and just keep getting her mental health through her life to make sure she's going to be okay. By just not telling the damage she suffered because she's so young. 2, you can go to the authorities and get him prosecuted to stop it. Because he's sick. So I discussed it with my daughter. And I said, I'm going to give you the option. What do you want to do? And I guess she was about 8 at that time. She says, I want to take him to court to stop him from getting to other children. So that's what we did. But you know what? It backfired in our face. They didn't do what they said they were going to do. He was never arrested, never prosecuted. He had money, he had power, he had connects. His brother was the mayor of Memphis. He slid like he always did. You know? When my house was hit by a tornado, I knew nothing was forever then. Clearly I did. Nothing is forever. You can build it as high as you want to build. Create your empire. But something can happen. And nothing is forever. But I'm at peace because the sorry piece of crap is no longer breathing. I had nothing to do with it. It took years, I guess. It's a lot of years had gone by. And that guy was still alive. I found it on accident, searching the internet just to see if the guy was still alive. And I sent word to somebody that knew my daughter. And I said, don't even tell her. You know, my phone number, nothing. Just tell her that I sent a message that Larry Robert Thurman is dead. That's all I ask. I can't tell you why or who or anything about that, but just tell her. She needs to know. Because I felt it's my responsibility. If this is something that haunted her all her life and destroyed her, that maybe she would get better because now he's gone. He can't do it anymore. He can't do anymore to little kids. It's all done. She hasn't got better. And I suppose she never will. Do I feel bad? Yeah. Really do. Somebody damaged my merchandise. Love of my life, the sweetest child in the world. Oh my gosh. If you only knew her. She was so precious. My sweet Dolly, my fairy princess. What a beautiful child. Ruined. Her baby sister says, well, she's long gone, that little girl you knew. And she's never coming back. So, my God, how can you say that? She said, because she is. It's not the same person. You will never see that little girl again. It's like she died. Pretty strong words from somebody who didn't even know her. Yeah. So I don't know. But I never really told the whole story. There's only a few people that knew it, and some people that stayed my friends through all that, and some that just wrote me off thinking I was such a terrible mom. That either my kid was just taken away, or I was just a really bad mom. And then maybe all that crap she said was true. Because it wasn't. She did what she thought was right. She was just a little bitty kid. She's not mastermind. She didn't even have college education. She was just a little bitty kid. She did what she thought was right. And maybe in essence, she did save both of our lives back then. Maybe. I hated for her to have to think that's what she had to do to save our lives. But I respect her because that was her decision. She's my child. She's my blood. I respect her because she decided that was the best thing to do. Cases may be sealed and filed for life, never to be reopened. But it'd always be there, long after I die. Will she ever truly love me? Probably not. That's the unfortunate part. She couldn't grow out of it, that she couldn't ever get totally better, and that somebody could damage her to that point. Take my wonderful, beautiful, perfect little girl and destroy her. Who has the power to make it go away? Well, of course they sealed the documents. They sealed it and ended that case forever. Because I went into court willingly letting them take her away. Doing everything but pleading insanity, which wouldn't have worked anyway because they'd already given me a $3,000 MMPI that said I was straight. So that would have never worked. If I'd have fought to the end, they would have charged me child support. Well, I don't think that's ever going to happen. It hasn't yet. It hasn't yet. I just know that every time she finds a way to contact me, that it might be good for a second and then it's going to go bad again. And it doesn't take but hours, minutes, or a couple days. That's about all. And then she'll try again. 6 months, a year, 2 years later to try to reach me again in total struggle that she really misses having a mommy. Do you? Miss that little girl. Really a lot. One of the best kids I ever had. Really. One of God's greatest gifts. Destroyed by one man. What about her dad? I left her dad years ago. She was 5 months old. I left her dad in fear. Because he drank and he partied a little and he hit me a couple times, gave me black eye, and it was scary. And for no reason, just out of the blue, just boom. And I got really scared. And so scared that I ran off with my baby, my newborn baby, into the schoolyard across the street from my house, hoping he would leave. And her daddy's deceased. And both of her so-called dads, the one on her birth certificate and her father, they both did. But, yeah, it's just, what a mess. What do you do? But it was one of the hardest things I ever went through, and I had to live with it all my life. Did he ever stay in touch with her? He wasn't allowed. I didn't give him access to that child because she was under a death threat just as myself. So I left California. And it wasn't from him. It was from a woman he was with that still lives today. Her brother's a great dude, though. He's awesome. He was like 15 when she was born. About that. But, yeah. It's just been a long haul all these years. And it's a shame I did it on the live because it needs to be downloaded and saved. But um, I just had to speak my piece because it is one of the absolute hardest stories I never really told. Mostly because people didn't like me when that happened, when all that happened in that case. People thought bad things about me. It really defaced me on paper. I lost a lot of friends. I only had a few that stayed friends all these years. All of these years, and some that have already passed away that stayed my friends all these years and believed in me. I really felt my daughter had been through some bad stuff and that she was just whacking out, you know, kind of like the way I felt. That she was just, you know, maxed out. I mean, folded under pressure, just did whatever uncontrollably. You know, I would hate to think of what it would be like to be in like 15 or 17 foster homes in a very short period of time. I bet all of them weren't good. I don't wish it upon anyone or any child. I've helped several people through the years that have had their children taken away because they were bad parents. And I've helped them every which way I could, from, you know, going to court with them, um, you know, pleading in their behalf, buying them nice clothes to wear to court, finding them lawyers, advising them of, you know, from my own experience. And they kind of go, well, you know, I don't know. It's like, look, I'm a pro. I know all about this situation. I got one right now that's getting ready to lose a child in January, but she just won't make an effort. I have tried and tried and tried and talked to her, and she's pregnant again and has a brand new baby to the stateside, which will now be a year old. And that case ends in January. And you know what's really terrible? She keeps buying that kid clothes and everything else and came to me and wanted me to rhinestone these shoes. Which I don't believe in putting stones on a baby's shoes because they always put their feet in the mouth. But she wanted me to do that for her so she could give that to that baby. And the kid doesn't even walk. That's a job I didn't want to do. Really and truly. I've helped several people with advice and stuff and how to get a lawyer and do what they wanted to do. And so far, I've never seen any of them get their kids back. Most of it is because they won't try. Yeah, they just won't try. Mine wasn't that. I had the money. I owned my own homes. I had lots of cars. I had 3 businesses. I had it going on. You know, I had to give it all away for free. I had a neighbor of mine wit. So, like, hey, you want to sell that white Cadillac? I said, it's yours. Came back later and said, well, uh, I need a bill of sale, so I'm not giving you any. Because I told you it was $0.00. I can't sell it for money. Because the state will come after me for the bill. I gave it all away. I told my dad, what am I supposed to do? Sew a big sheet and throw it over the top of the house and say, hey, you can't see it anymore now, can you? A 5-story, 200-year-old Victorian, really? It's like 2,800 square foot per level. Yeah. Unfortunately, the house is long gone now. The lot is empty. I was just there recently. Walked all over that ground. It's hard to believe that house is gone. It was the last house I was going to have, and I would swing a hammer on. And I was doing it for my daughter. So that if I ever died, she would have a big giant house. I didn't do it for profit. I did it for my daughter. So she'd never be left behind with nothing. Because I was all she had. And a tornado took it
And I was told by fire was the end, which I'm sure my neighbor did that. I don't have a doubt in my mind. He used to make jokes about it all the time, saying, "Why don't you Coke bottle it," and all that stuff. Please. I'm not into illegal things.
So anyway, so there it is. One of the hardest stories I never really told. Regrets? Yeah. Always will. To the day I die and after I die. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. And sometimes when you think your parents are so stupid, they're really the smartest people of all. And you didn't listen.